So now it's time to add fine detail to my scene. I'm going to load up my fish lines alpha, and then I'm going to make a new layer for this. And I'm going to mask my alpha, and I'm going to actually hide that view mask button. So the mask is still active, but you can't see it. And then I'm going to store a morph target, and you'll see why I will in a minute. But now I can go to my standard brush, start working on this, and I'm able to do stuff in the scene because the mask is active. And I'm going to invert this in a minute, and then I'm going to hide the view mask button again. Click that, and now I can start pushing down in some of the areas. It's kind of nice to do that inverse effect. Now I'm going to switch to my morph brush in just a second when I'm happy with what I have here. And since I stored that morph target, I can start erasing a lot of the sections, mistakes I made there on the border. So you see I was sloppy before, but it doesn't matter because I can remove it with my morph brush. In addition to those borders, I just go through in any of those areas that felt too uniform to me. I like to break those up with the morph brush, and it just is almost like an eraser restoring my original detail, and this makes it feel a little less CG. So I'll keep doing that for a bit, and once I'm satisfied, I will delete the old morph target, and then I'm going to store a new morph target. And here I go doing that. And the reason why is I'm going to go to the surface settings now and add a noise. And basically all I do is I adjust the scale and the noise curves here, which are from default settings, and when I'm happy I'll press OK at the bottom, and then I'll apply it to the mesh. And you'll see the first time I try this it gets a little too pillowed. I don't like that, so I undo it, I scale down the settings a bit, and then I'll apply it again, and this doesn't distort as much, so I keep it. Now I switch back to my morph brush again, and I just start erasing some of the noise detail so that it's a little bit more uniform. Now I'm going to be using the clay buildup brush as well as the dam standard brush to start breaking up this assay, giving it a little bit of a worn and weathered feel to match the bottom pieces you see below. Adding cracks, chipping away at edges, anything I can do to get rid of some of this clean, newly manufactured or newly sculpted feel. And a lot of times I like going in and really removing big chunks like you're seeing here on the edge of the fish. And one thing I try to do is not do it completely even across everything. It's nice to have sporadic detail. And again, I'm just kind of using the clay buildup brush there, and now I pick the dam standard brush. Each of these are brushes that are available in ZBrush. This one's kind of nice. You can cut in cracks a little bit easier. Go a little bit deeper with this. And finally, at the end, one thing I like to do too is adding like these little pittings, which is a nice touch. And next I'm going to start working on the top piece. And the first thing I'm going to do is add the ornate shell alpha mask. And this will kind of do what we were doing with the fish on the border that we made with the mask selection and lasso tools. We'll just recess this a bit with the transpose tool. And then once we have a nice recess, I'll smooth out the edges a bit. And then I'm going to load up our detailed ornate alpha mask that we made using that cool tutorial that Vitaly Bulgarov helped me make in Photoshop. And it's just really nice the detail you can get on this very, very quickly with the even just clay buildup or a standard brush on top. And I can invert the mask and give it a little bit more depth here. And I'm hiding that mask again where it says view mask button on the right there under masking. And speaking of Vitaly Bulgarov, one of the next tools I'm going to show you is a Vitaly pinch brush. You can see that's activated in the left-hand corner now. This is just a really nice custom pinch brush that Vitaly created that I really like to use. It's included with the downloadable zip file in the ZBrush folder. So check that out and compare it with the standard pinch brush out of Photoshop, or sorry, ZBrush, and let me know what you think. And now I'm using the standard brush again just to add some volume to the swirls here, make them feel like they're not just a flat 2D texture map. And finally I'm going to add some noise to this. I had a crash so you guys don't get to see it actually applied, but there I've got it. And then again I'm using the clay buildup, dam standard brush, and a combination of the Vitaly pinch brush to start breaking up these edges. So in a minute here I'm going to be using Decimation Master, and if you guys remember from the 3D Studio Max scene, the stones on the ground and the border models right below the fish thing. Those are decimated meshes, so we're going to recreate those with our ornate piece and our fish wall piece. And you can find that underneath the Z plugin tab at the top of the screen, which you'll see me open now. By default, the Keep UV section won't be turned on, so you're going to want to make sure you turn that on. So you see me dragging over now. Keep that Keep UVs on. Pre-process current. That'll take a second to process the decimation, and then you hit decimate current at the bottom. And I just use the default settings. Once I find something I like that's not too minimal, I'll save it off. But yeah, Keep UVs, pre-process current, decimate current, and you should be good to go. So the final thing in ZBrush I want to show you guys is how to make the vines that I did in Unmystified with insert mesh brushes. Now if you want to learn all of this in a lot of detail, go back to that web links text pad that I gave you and go underneath tutorials and this one from Michael Pavlovich for creating and using insert mesh brushes in ZBrush. This is just a really awesome series of videos that he put together on the ZBrush Classroom that shows you every single detail you ever need to know about the insert mesh brush tools. Really good stuff in here. So if you like what I show you right now, be sure to check it out because I have to give you a very quick version of what we have. So looking in here, this is where we left the file off of. I also imported the ground stones, but everything is now one poly group. So let's go ahead and start making our vine brush. We need to get back to our object primitive, so under Tool, if you were to come in here, this is probably what it looks like when you click Tool. Come to Image Plane, double click that, and then double click the poly cube. And then what I want to do is, it's already got 4 subdivisions on it, so let's delete the higher ones, and then Control D to subdivide that. And then now I'm going to make a mask over the top, and then Control W to make a poly group, and then Control Shift click this to hide the bottom poly group. I'm going to delete this lower, and then I'm going to delete hidden topology. Now we just have the top portion here. Now I'm going to Control click select up here to change this from just a normal selection rectangle to a slice curve brush. And I'm just going to come in here and cut this because we need to have 3 different sections and 3 different poly groups to make the type of brush that we want to do. So now I'm going to select this just so I have my top portion selected here. And I want to stretch this out just a bit. I'm doing this with the Move tool. Control Shift click again. Let's cut one more division in here. Now we have 3 divisions, which will make up our vine brush pretty nicely, and we have 3 different poly groups. So I'm going to switch back to a standard brush before I make our insert mesh tool. You need to make sure that you lock this to one of your angles, so Shift lock, and now we're good to go. Imagine that this is the bottom of the vine and this is the top, so when we draw this thing out, you want this to be the bottom and this to be the top. I know it seems reversed, don't worry about it. Just press B and you come down here where it says Create Insert Mesh, click that, say New, and now up here on the left you see we actually have a Insert Mesh tool. So I'm going to go back to our vine wall now. The stones, this is where we're going to actually draw it on. I'm going to duplicate this in case we need a duplication, like if I mess up something. And now if I drag, you can see it actually goes on, but it's just this. We want to drag something so that's nicer. So on the side here, I've already prepared 3 different things, stroke and brush. Come up here to stroke, and come up here to curve, turn on curve mode, and now if I run this across, you can see that we have something going. What we need to do next is come down here to the brush section, come to modifiers, turn on weld points. Let's turn up the curve res a little bit, and these angles. The weld points now, if I click on this, you'll see that everything connects. So now if I draw this out, we have the vine connecting. Here's the end of it, and here's the base where we started. So that's looking pretty good. If we need to change the size, literally you just change it back, and you can click on it or just draw it out new again. So the one thing that we need to change is vines, whenever they're growing, you know, they go from thick to smaller. So the next thing we need to do is come back up here to your stroke menu, and under curve modifiers, under this curve fall off section, watch what happens if I click size. If I re-click on this now, you'll see that the part where I actually started got then in the end is thicker. So let's just change this to be the opposite, and let's make sure it doesn't go to a complete small point. I think a good halfway point is nice here. Cool, so this feels pretty good. I might go a little bit smaller. And then now we have it thick at the bottom and thinner as it goes to the top. So I'm just going to hide this because I think these are pretty good settings, and I'm just going to start drawing out our vine. So once I'm happy with the vine that I draw out, the next thing I want to show you is notice how it sits kind of floating above the surface. If you go to the brush settings and you go to the depth thing, notice the little black dot in the center here. If you move that down and then re-click on your vine, notice how it goes into the acid a bit. Play around with that, the depth setting, that just allows you to kind of move it in and out. I'm just going to really quickly invert my mask and then Control W to give it a new poly group, Shift F. So now we have two different poly groups. And I'm going to split these, group split. So now we have the vine just by itself, and this is good for me. The next thing I want to show you guys that a lot of people don't do is called Insert Mesh Replacement. And this is pretty cool. This is a way that we're going to be able to take everything and kind of connect it together like you're seeing here. So all you have to do is literally just mask a portion that you would like and then make a new poly group for that section. See that? And then now just click on that. Drag off. See how we have like this new vine coming out here? And then from the side here, when you're ready to connect it, hold down the Control key and drag twice. See how it connects in here? It gets a little funky, so what I usually do is I just smooth it out just a little bit. And you can use the inflate brush or something like that to kind of help thicken it out if you need to. And now I've sped up the recording because I'm just going to add a couple more of these vine attachments that come off the edge. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to hide this back portion, and I'm going to actually UVW map these. I'm going to take everything, make it one poly group for now, and then I'm actually going to use the lasso tool to select different portions of the vine, which I can make separate poly groups from, that I feel need to have their own separate UV island. So I'm just separating how I think the UVs will relax best. Let's open up the Z plugin. There's a really nice tool in here for UVWs. Let's turn off, just keep polygroups on so it respects polygroups, turn off symmetry. So now let's just unwrap that, flatten that to see what this looks like. And this is pretty cool, like it does a really great job of flattening and relaxing. One thing that people don't know is you can actually work with this just like you do a regular Z tool. So I'm going to go to my transpose mode and just do some basic rotations, making sure that everything aligns vertically from top to bottom, because I'm going to be using alpha map that's kind of like tree bark, and it needs to flow from the bottom of the vine to the top and look very clean. And then the next thing I'm going to do in a minute is I'm going to unflatten this before I apply my alpha map. And then now what I want to do is actually load an alpha map in here that I'm going to use for displacement. In our maps folder, vine bark displacement, I'm going to open this. And what I want to do here is I'm going to mess with the timeline a bit. So I'm going to put it on maybe about 13 for vertical and horizontal. And then I'll apply the alpha with the mask by alpha feature. And you'll see the flow lines of the bark go up nicely from bottom to top on this because of the way we laid out our UVs. Next, deformation. I'll come in and I'll do a positive inflate to get some of those bark features to pop out. I'll invert my mask, and then I'll do a negative inflate to recess it just a bit. Once I'm done with that, I'll just clear my mask, I'm going to hide my stones, and then I'm going to use a combination of the move brush, inflate brush, and smooth brush to kind of get rid of some of the CG feel and polish my vine nicely. And once I'm ready for it to go back to max, I'm going to run Decimation Master again on this and then export it, which I won't show you right now, but you'll see in a minute in 3ds Max.